Hi everybody, so we've seen a serious increase in the number of COVID cases, and a lot of persons want to say it's because the Prime Minister would have called the election, while we are seeing this spike in the number of cases because of the election activities. Let us be sensible about it. There is no way we would have seen the numbers increase because of election already. Obviously, the numbers we are seeing is because of persons' irresponsibility over the Independence weekend. Now, we use the term responsibility very loosely, and in Jamaica, it is quite obvious that being responsible is something that a lot of us struggle with. In our economy, in our personal lives, we can see irresponsibility coming out. And over the Independence weekend, I hear the Minister of Health saying that they kind of give persons some leeway because, the Prime Minister would have said that persons were suffering from fatigue. Well, fatigue don't kill nobody, but obviously, you give people an inch to take a yard, and now we're seeing the effects of that. Let us not be too political in how we look at things. We are going to see an increase in cases that we can attribute to the political activities. One, because I am one of them who agree that even if the election was called from the get-go, there should be absolutely no political activity on the ground, such as meetings and motorcades. That should have never been the case from the get-go. So that's one thing that we can agree with. Election should be called, and election should the election activities leading up to the actual day of election should have been virtual from the start, taking into consideration all the issues we're having with COVID. Now, it is late on. Some things would have already been done. That is something that we'll have to live with. Now, I am not one of those persons who believe that the government should not have called the election. No. We don't know when COVID is going to end. Yes, Jamaica had it under relative control, but our borders were open. And majority of the persons who are entering the country are coming from the US, and the US is an absolute disaster. The US will have their elections later this year. Most countries are not putting off their elections because of COVID. Why? Because not even the scientists can say how exactly to control COVID. So an end to COVID, nobody can say when. I would not want to be going into 2021 with a government who will be required to make very, very important decisions, and the government wondering, oh my God, I wonder if I can make the decision now because election is due in a month or in 2 weeks. No. I am very happy that the elections were called now. What I am sad about is the fact that the government did not think it through properly in terms of what should happen leading up to the election. That is my only disappointment with the process. But let us not question our democracy, ladies and gentlemen. It should not be a case that because of COVID, elections should not be called, or else the US will be postponing their elections. We notice Canada right now. Canada dissolved their parliament because they are also looking at the decisions that their government need to make, and is their government really legitimate enough in terms of numbers to make certain decisions? So they're also contemplating whether or not they should go back to the polls. You have other countries around the world that are now still going ahead with their elections. You do have some who are postponing, but a postponement for 2 months or 3 months, that won't create any huge difference in numbers for COVID. So, what we need to do is persons need to be responsible for themselves. I love politics. Love it, love it, love it. But nobody's going to get me to go on a campaign right now to go and mix up with 10,000 people that I don't know what they're doing. No, I'm not going to do it. I'll send out my messages. I'll make my point over social media. I'll let it be known where I stand. But I am responsible for myself. We all need to be responsible for ourselves and our actions. And we cannot lay every single stupidity that we do at the feet of politicians and government. That is utter madness. And we see it ever so often in our country. Somebody go out, have 20 children they can't take care of, then they're upset. Oh, nobody now help me and the government now help me. Excuse me? No, that's your doing. That's nobody else is doing. It's the same thing with COVID-19. Everybody went out Independence weekend, had a fantastic time. You see the buses on the road all over the place. The beaches were full. Everybody was jumping off bridges. And then we're now saying that we're worried about the hospitals, we're worried about beds, we're worried about ventilators. We're not goats. We have a functional brain. So that is something that we should all think about before we make stupid decisions. Also, we need to understand that we're in a country where our healthcare is not ideal. It is not the best. So we need to ensure that we're making decisions that don't leave us reliant on our healthcare system. Some persons will not have an option but to use public healthcare if and when the time comes. Now, there are some persons in the society who have tons of options in terms of if they're ill, what they can do and what they can afford. Again, we need to be very, very smart. So I'm saying to everybody, love your politics, enjoy the time, but in enjoying the time, we need to be responsible. Now, we also understand the flip side of elections. During these times is when a lot of people make some good money. It is what it is. Enough man can't afford to fill him gas tank. Him only can buy in $2,000 gas or in $1,500 gas. When it's election time, we have a full tank of gas every single day until election is finished. So yeah, we understand the whole optics around elections and why some people want to rally around and be up and down with their MPs and the persons who are going up for office, because people make a food in this time. But again, in making that food, it is difficult to say, but we have to be thinking, as my grandmother would say, farther than your toe point, right? Because we have to know, yes, I might make a $10,000 now, but all of that might be spent on medical bills in the future because I contract COVID. So let us be sensible about it. But our country has to go on. Elections are important and we need a legitimate government. And I think calling the election right now was a fantastic move on behalf of the government. But the thought process in what should have happened leading up to the polls on September 3rd, I don't think we got that correct. But I mean, we can recover if everybody chip in and play their part.